Hey guys, it's Kari. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a book haul for you. I have about 26 books that I'm going to haul today. I'm going to show them to you in no particular order. So let's go ahead and jump in. The first book that I have is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Now, I actually just finished reading this very recently, so you'll have to wait and see what I thought of it when I do my wrap up. I can tell you that I was really excited to pick this up, even though I was a little bit so-so about the guest list, but I was excited to pick up The Paris Apartment because obviously since it's set in Paris, I live in Paris, I was really looking forward to this. Basically, the plot is that Jess's brother Ben moves to Paris and moves into this apartment building, and there's all these different characters that live in the building, and we're trying to find out how they all connect to each other and connect to the fact that Ben has gone missing. Jess went to go stay with him. The day that she showed up, he's gone. And so throughout the book, you're trying to piece together what happened to Ben. Now, can we just appreciate how beautiful this cover is? I love this cover. The UK cover is not attractive at all. I'm obsessed with this cover. I love it. I love the pink font. I love the typical Parisian building background. Perfection. Way to go. The first book that I read this year was A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and already when I was in the middle of it, I was just loving it so much. I was like, I need to have more Hanya Yanagihara in my life, and that was right about when her new book was coming out, so I pre-ordered it because I was like, I need more of this woman's writing in my life ASAP. So, as you can tell, I got To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara. This takes place over 3 timelines, and we're trying to connect them all together. One is in 1893, one is in 1993, and the other is in 2093. So I believe that we're trying to figure out how these 3 timelines fit together. Now, it's a chunky boy, but so was A Little Life, and it was totally worth it. Now, I have heard mixed things about this book, but no matter what, I'm going to read it because I just loved the beautiful writing of A Little Life, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this, despite the mixed reviews that I've seen so far. Next is a book that I got in my Paris book shopping vlog that you may have seen. I got it at Shakespeare & Company in Paris. As you can see, here is the little stamp that they put in it for me, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses. I don't need to explain the plot of A Court of Thorns and Roses to you because this is all over BookTube, and I'm sure you've already heard what it's about or have already read it. I'm really getting into fantasy because I'm reading the Game of Thrones series right now, and has made me realize that I can enjoy fantasy, so I think I'm going to like this one. And I heard that it's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, which Beauty and the Beast is my favorite Disney movie, so I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. Next is a book that I've heard about here and there, and I've heard mostly good reviews, especially if you like weird books. So already I was sold on the fact that it's a weird book, but the cover, so good. And that is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea Summers. I mean, look at this cover. It's so good. Now, I did see online that they're changing the cover, that they're doing a new edition with a cover, and it's like a pineapple getting like butchered in half. I know that this book is about a cannibalist, a woman who like kills her dates and then eats them. Obviously, like I said, this is supposed to be a strange book, but this evokes cannibalist, unhinged woman vibes. A pineapple cut in half doesn't give the same emotion. So when I went to buy this online, actually they're running out of this edition, and so I had to buy it. I didn't want to get the pineapple version. So if you want this cover, run, don't walk. You need to order it now before they're all out. Now, it's possible that that's only in Europe that that's happening. I don't know. So maybe if you're in the US, it'll be easier to get. That's very possible. But if you're in Europe, get yourself a copy of this edition. Next, as you can see, I collect cloth-bound classics. They're published by Penguin. They're so beautiful. I love them. And this past month, they had their newest release, which is On the Road by Jack Kerouac. So I am interested in reading this classic. It's not high up on my TBR. If I'm going to read a classic, I have other classics that are higher up on my TBR, but I had to have it because I have a good collection of the cloth-bound classics, so I just had to buy it to add it to my collection. They have some really nice ones coming out soon that I'm really looking forward to. Next is another classic, which I actually already have in the Clothbound Classics edition, but I don't really like to read from my Clothbound Classics because they're pieces of art, and the designs on the cover, this like printing, it can rub off if you handle the books too much. I really treat them like pieces of art, and I don't read from them. However, I do really want to get into this book soon, so that's why I bought a different edition of it, and that's Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Now, yes, technically I could read this in French. I speak French, I live in France, and it's a French classic. You might be yelling at me, Kari, you should read it in French. It's a French classic. You're in France, read it in French. But I mean, this is a heckin' chunky boy, and I don't know. I just want to read it in English. I bought this Penguin Deluxe Classic Edition, and I love it. It's so beautiful, and it's got the deckled edges. which I love. Now I know that this is kind of a controversial opinion to love deckled edges, but I freaking love deckled edges. I remember before I was a big reader that one time I got a book that had deckled edges, but I didn't know that those were deckled edges. I just thought that there was a printing problem on the book, and I literally sent the book back. That just shows you how not big of a reader I used to be, because I literally thought something was wrong with the book. But no, I would die for all my books to have deckled edges. So we see how far we've come. So anyway, this is Les Miserables. Next is another book that I've already read. I bought it, read it right away, and that's Matrix by Lauren Groff. Now, again, can we talk about this cover? I'm obsessed with this cover. It's so beautiful with the gold foiling on it and everything, and then the little nuns. I mean, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And also, I love this international paperback size. It's bigger than a trade paperback. For example, this is my copy of And Then There Were None. So you can see how much bigger it is. I love this size of book. This is my favorite. Anyway, this book was sold to me as lesbian nuns in France. And I was like, sign me up. Unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy this. Now, it's a retelling of the story of Marie de France, so it's more enjoyable if you know the story of Marie de France, who is a real person. However, that couldn't even really save it for me. It's about a girl, Marie, who is basically banished to go become a nun. How she revitalizes this abbey and how she brings life back into it and all the things that she does to take care of this abbey. And at the beginning, it's pretty interesting, but then it's just so detailed about like taking care of the land around the abbey and all these things. I don't know. It's really not even that long, but it felt long. I feel like it would have been better as a short story. So don't be fooled by the lesbian nuns in France. Now that sounds like perfection, but unfortunately this let me down and I didn't like it that much. Next is an edition of a book that I read last year and I freaking loved it. It's one of my new favorite books for sure. Since now it's become one of my all-time favorite books, I decided that I wanted a first edition of this book, and that is The Secret History. Now, she's beauty, she's grace, she's Miss United States. So I'm really excited to have this first edition, and it's kind of bizarre, this edition. So this was published in 1993. It has this like clear film on top of it, and it has the text on it. And then the book is just like this with no dust jacket, with no text on it, which I find interesting for a book that came out in 1993. I don't know, this seems kind of advanced and modern. So like I said, this is one of my favorite books, so I really wanted to get a first edition of it, and I love it. I'm going to cherish it forever. So I really like to follow the Women's Prize for Fiction, and last year I read the shortlist and I was so happy Piranesi won. That was my favorite, that was my pick. Everybody was saying The Vanishing Half, which I know so many people love, but Piranesi is just top tier. It was so good. One of my favorite books last year. I was so happy for Susanna Clarke because that was before the big hype around Piranesi, and I found a lot of really good books thanks to reading the shortlist last year. It's something that I want to do every year now, and so this year the long list for the Women's Prize was just announced a couple weeks ago, and so I picked a few of the ones that sounded the most interesting to me that I want to read before the shortlist is announced, kind of like my predictions for the shortlist, even though I haven't read them yet, but the ones that sound the most interesting to me. And so the first book that I chose is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. So this book is about a little boy whose father dies, and then he starts hearing the objects in his house talk to him. And I believe that the more time goes on, the more objects are speaking to him. I don't really know too much more than that, and I don't want to, because already that's enough for me. I was sold already with just that much information. Now it is kind of big, but I think this is going to be one of the next books that I read because I want to read it before the shortlist itself is announced. Also, we need to talk about this spine. This spine is incredible. Everybody needs to take note. This is how you make a spine. This next book is a book that I've been looking for a specific edition forever. I either wanted the international paperback edition, which is like those big paperbacks, or a hardback with the cover that I wanted. I looked forever. I even looked in the US when I was back in the US last summer. I couldn't find it anywhere, so I finally just accepted that I was gonna have to have the regular paperback, and that is Pretty Girls by Karin Slaughter. Now I think that this is kind of a divisive book on BookTube because it's so horrifying and disgusting that people either eat that up and they love that, or they're totally turned off by it. I really like horror, so I'm hoping that I really like this. And like I said, I've been wanting to read it for a long time. I was just kind of holding out, looking for the edition that I wanted, but in the end, I just accepted that this is the one I want to have because I want this cover. The UK cover is no, Why? I literally have no idea what this is about, and that's exactly how I like to go into my thrillers. Next is another Women's Prize for Fiction long list nominee this year, and that's The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. So this is something that sounded interesting to me that I think potentially could make it to the shortlist, so I bought this one to read it before the shortlist is announced. What I understand what this book is about, there's a woman that shops there all the time, and then she dies on All Saints Day, and then basically she haunts the bookstore. That's all I know about it. That's all I need to know about it. Ghosts, bookstore, done. My next book comes back to the theme of Donna Tartt. Now again, since I loved The Secret History so much last year, I know what a concept to love The Secret History. But I loved it so much that I wanted to read more Donna Tartt, and I already have the Goldfinch, although I haven't heard excellent things about it, so I'm not in a rush to jump into that. But I did want to get The Little Friend by Donna Tartt. Now this takes place in Mississippi, which I think is interesting because Donna Tartt went to university in Mississippi. So I think it'd be really interesting to read about a perspective in Mississippi. This is about a 9-year-old boy who is found hanging by a tree in the front yard of his family. I believe that it jumps 11 years forward and the mystery still isn't solved at how that even happened. And so it's about that it follows the characters through this mystery of what happened 11 years ago. Like I said, Donna Tartt's writing is just absolutely incredible. It's so powerful, so beautiful that I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. Next is another book that I had to go searching for the edition that I wanted because of course they didn't sell this edition here in Europe and I had to have it. And the UK cover is just, why do they make these choices? And that is All's Well by Mona Awad. Now I just recently read Bunny, which was, oh my god, so good. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this one by Mona Awad, even though I've heard that there's mixed reviews. But I mean, look at this cover. Just look at her. Look at this cover. Are you looking at it? It's beautiful. It's perfection. I'm obsessed. The font, the picture, the colors, incredible. So this edition wasn't available here for so long and I held out. I even said, I'm just gonna have to wait till the next time that I go to the US and buy it in the US. But I feel like it wasn't even available in the US for a long time, that it was only available in Canada because Mona Awad is Canadian. But finally, Book Depository, it came through. Even though it was months late, I got it. This is about a theater teacher in high school who's trying to put on All's Well That Ends Well by Shakespeare with her students, but they seem really determined to put on Macbeth instead. So this should be interesting to get into, especially after loving Bunny so much. Next is another book that I hauled in my Paris book shopping vlog, which if you haven't seen yet, I'll link it down below. I go shopping at Shakespeare & Company and a bunch of other bookshops in Paris. This book I got at Galignani on Rue de Rivoli in Paris, and that's The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. Like I said in that vlog, I think that this book is pretty divisive, that people either love it or they hate it. I think I'm going to fall in the category of loving it. This is about 5 sisters and they all commit suicide and they're trying to find out why did they commit suicide, what happened. Also, I'm looking forward to watching the movie after I read the book. It's directed by Sofia Coppola, who I love. I'm sure I'm going to love that as well. Next is a book that if you enjoyed My Dark Vanessa, now, hold on. I use the term enjoyed with a grain of salt because obviously My Dark Vanessa, you don't enjoy what happens to Vanessa. Obviously. My point is if you appreciated the story and the message that it's sending, I think that you could really appreciate this one as well. And that is You Deserve Nothing by Alexander Maksik. This is set at an international high school in Paris. And there's this teacher there that everybody loves. Like, you know, at high school, there's always at least one teacher that everybody just loves, that all the students connect to them. And all these students want the attention of this one teacher who everybody just admires and really looks up to. So William Silver is that teacher at this international school. Now, I've already read this, so I'm going to talk about it in my wrap up. However, I just want to tell you a little bit about what it's about. So we get these little glimpses into William Silver's classroom, and he's just truly, the things that he talks about with his students, you can tell that he just wants nothing more than to help these students be better people in life. It's not about the content, about what he's teaching in class. It's about how can I make these students better people. He teaches them how to critically think and question things in life, you know, which is foundationally the role of a teacher. So it's told from 3 perspectives. One is from the teacher himself. The second perspective is from a male student in his class who really looks up to the teacher. The third perspective is a female student at the school, but she's not in the class of William Silver. However, the student is being groomed by the teacher outside of class. So like I said, it's really heavy in the same vein as My Dark Vanessa. The content, obviously, very hard to read, so content warning for that. However, the writing is really well done, and I think it does a really good job of showing the complexities of people, that people can be so good in some ways. You know, he's an incredible, incredible teacher in the classroom, but yet a profoundly horrible human being because of the things that he's doing with his students. So I think that it's a really interesting examination of a character. The next book that I have is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. Now, I don't know too much about this. I know that I want to read this based on vague things that I've heard about it. Basically, it's about a student in Tokyo living the university life, but I just know that it's really sad, and I love a sad book. I feel like this is a staple if you want to have sad girl vibes and you just want to be a sad girly. So I have to read it. It's an obligation. Next is another book that I hauled on my Paris book shopping vlog, and that's The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. This book is about a mother of university-age daughters, and her daughters go off, and it's about the mom being home alone now. But what does she do now that she's no longer being a mom every single day? So it opens with her going on a little vacation to the beach and her observing this mom and daughter on the beach and the emotions that that evokes for her now that she doesn't have kids at home and she's an empty nester herself. And this is a short little book, so I think that this could be binged in a day. The next book is actually another book translated from French, but it's more contemporary than Les Miserables, and that's The Mad Woman's Ball by Victoria Maas. So this takes place in 1885. During that time was when a lot of women were being diagnosed with hysteria, and so this book is about women who have been put into this hospital, but every year they have this ball, Mad Women's Ball. But also, if I understand correctly, it's not just the women in the hospital who go, it's like the event for the Parisian elite every year. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how these women who have been diagnosed with hysteria have this connection to Parisian society. The next book is another book that I hauled in my Paris book shopping vlog, and that's Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. This has been making the rounds on BookTube, and I'm looking forward to reading it, even though I really don't like this cover. I feel like what I know about the book, this doesn't depict that. To me, this cover looks like it's just a romantic book, but from what I understand, it's more insidious than that, kind of along the lines, again, of My Dark Vanessa or You Deserve Nothing, except this time it's a university student, so obviously it's not a minor. I've actually heard pretty good things about this one, so I'm looking forward to reading this. Next are two nonfiction books that are on the same topic. I'm currently working on becoming a vegetarian, and I'm trying to learn as much as possible in the implications of eating meat. Last year I read Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer, and it was life-changing, literally. It made me stop eating meat. That book was published a pretty long time ago, I forget the year, but he had a new release over the past couple of years of another book about becoming vegetarian or even vegan, and so I picked up We Are the Weather by Jonathan Safran Foer. So Eating Animals is more about factory farming and the implications on animals themselves when you eat meat, but I have the impression that this one is more about the impact on the climate. Now, actually, if you've read this before or you're interested in this, but maybe you don't want to read it, Lena Norms on her YouTube channel did a really interesting book club discussion with Ariel Bissett, and it was really informative, and it's actually what made me want to read this. So I'm going to link that down below if you're interested. This next book is another book about vegetarianism. Well, actually, this one's more specific to veganism, but the title is pretty funny and attracted my attention. And then as the reviews rolled in, I saw that it was getting really incredible reviews, so I was sold. I had to pick it up. And it's called This is Vegan Propaganda by Ed Winters. And the subtitle is And Other Lies the Meat Industry Tells You. So just like everything else in life, the people that are making money off of something want you to keep consuming it. So of course, the meat industry, they're trying to discredit vegans and vegetarians, saying that their arguments are ridiculous, but of course they're going to tell you that because they want you to keep eating meat. So I really like this title. I think it was smart. Okay, so we only have 5 books left, and these next 2 are actually graphic novels. I haven't read a lot of graphic novels, but the ones that I have read were incredible, so I'm trying to read more of them. So I got this first one. It's called Brazen by Penelope Begieux. This is a graphic novel about a bunch of different women in history that aren't well known at all. A lot of them I've never heard of before. And they teach you history about their life and why are these women so important to history. So the subtitle is Rebel Ladies Who Rock the World. So just to give you an example, they have Josephine Baker. But that's just one example of a woman portrayed in this book. There's 29 women depicted, and Josephine Baker is literally the only one I've ever heard of. So that just shows you how educational this book can be, and I can't wait to learn more about these important women in history. Next is actually a second book from an author that I first read last year. Now maybe you've heard of Alison Bechdel before because they created the Bechdel test. Now I'm going to put the criteria for the Bechdel test here, but you can see that basically the Bechdel test is a test that you can use for any type of media, movies, books, video games, for example. Do 2 women talk to each other, not about a man? I'm going to put some example of media here that doesn't pass the Bechdel test. It's really surprising the type of media that doesn't pass the Bechdel test. So anyway, Alison Bechdel is a cartoonist, and I read their graphic novel Fun Home last year. It's about how they grew up in a funeral home, so Fun Home. So I went ahead and got this copy of Dykes to Watch Out For because This was actually a comic strip that Alison Bechdel became famous for. It ran from 1987 to 2008. So it's a comic strip about mostly lesbian characters and the things that happen to them and living their lives, and it just has the comedy of Alison Bechdel. And I just really like this copy. I don't know, it's nice. It's a nice big paperback. So just to give you a look at Alison Bechdel's art. So Dykes to Watch Out For is the name of the comic strip, but this edition is called The Essential Dykes to Watch Out For because it has all of the comics in her series in this one book. My next two books are middle grade books, and then I'm going to finish with a children's book. So the first one is Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab. So this is a part of the Cassidy Blake trilogy, and I haven't read the first book. The way that I understand it is that you don't have to read them all. I'm particularly interested in this one because it takes place in the catacombs of Paris, which are incredible. If you ever come to Paris, you have to go to the catacombs. It's so cool. So Cassidy's parents are ghost hunters, so they're hunting ghosts in Paris. I think that this will be really fun, especially because I've been to the catacombs, and I'm sure I'm going to want to go again after I read this book. Next is actually another book that I've already read since I picked it up, and that's Coraline by Neil Gaiman. This is like a booktube darling, so eventually I had to read it, and I really liked it. It's about a little girl who lives in this house with her parents, and there's this door in the living room that you don't open. Like, it's just blocked off, and it's kind of like their house is a duplex and there's like another apartment on the other side, and so she says, you know, this door, it doesn't go anywhere. But one day Coraline sneaks and opens the door, and it's open, and it opens to this hallway. She kind of enters another dimension where her parents are in this other side of the house, this like other reality, but they're not her parents. Like, they're trying to be her parents, but they're not. There's something wrong. So chaos ensues from there and what she needs to do to be able to go home again. And finally is the last book that I hauled in my Paris book shopping tour, and that's a children's book, Paris Hide and Seek. Really, really cool. Like I said in my vlog, it's basically Where's Waldo, but for Paris. So for example, we have the Paris Opera House, which is where the Phantom of the Opera happened, by the way. And you're supposed to find a little dance student. So you can see that she's right here. So this is a really, really cute book for little kids. If you have a young reader in your life and you come to Paris and you want to get a little something for them, I would highly recommend this. I got this at Galignani. It's so freaking cute, and the art is adorable. Alright guys, so that was my book haul. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found something that sounds interesting to you, and maybe you can go out and buy a copy or get a copy from your library, and you'll have to let me know what you think of the book. If you've read any of these books, tell me in the comments below what you thought of it, what was your star rating, and would you recommend it? I hope that you enjoyed this book haul, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!